Hey guys, welcome back. It's been over a year since I've spoke with you guys. To pick back up here on Ross Jeffries, that guy, and his Speed Seduction Mastery Tips. This is part 7 to pick up on embedded commands is where I left off over a year ago. And to follow up, I've discovered many things in the last year. I've developed a very long and loving relationship. That is what has kept me away from doing these videos. And I was pushed back into it through several of the followers, subscribers, and my girlfriend, weirdly enough. She happened upon these one day, started watching them, had some questions, obviously, and said, you know what? You're pretty good at articulating this stuff and you're pretty accurate. And then she told me, well, I can see that you use that with me, so it's pretty effective. So, couple all that together. Hopefully you guys have had some success. I know some of you have reached out and said hello, had some questions. Keep those coming. But let's go back over this, and I'm happy to be back. Where I left off, embedded commands. Ross Jeffries states, embedded commands are one of the major building blocks of my own seductions. When you really make use of embedded commands, the beauty is you can mix them with any style. Even if you decide that speed seduction is absolutely amazing, but maybe you're going to be stupid and try something else. Any style of pickup or seduction can be improved by orders of magnitude when you use commands and suggestions. He's right. He's absolutely right. Commands and suggestions go a long way. We'll get into it in a moment. What is it that commands are designed to do? Above the general principle of capturing and leading the imagination and directionalizing a woman's psychology, physiology, and her brain. An embedded command can tell a listener to think in a certain way, to have a certain train of thought. Now, I want to point out how powerful it actually is. All of us have it in us to be able to do this. For instance, as kids, we learned mom or dad was either good or bad about giving us what we wanted. So we either ran to mom or dad to get what we wanted. We learned to game the system, if you will. We learned to manipulate. We learned commands and suggestions as a very young age to gain the advantage of what we wanted in life. So all of us have it in us. We can all do it, all of us. Second is it's not as underhanded as it actually seems because, again, a lot of you guys and girls are already doing it. You just don't know you're doing it. If you don't know you're doing it, then you don't know how to improve on it. Okay? That's my big key. You know, take that out of Ross's context here. If you don't know you're doing it, then you can't improve on it. Okay? That's from marriage advice all the way over to pickup and seduction and everything else. So, identify the areas that you guys are doing it. Think about it in your everyday life. Make a list. I love making lists. I make lists for everything. Make a list and see the things that you do. And then you'll come to realize, ooh, I can change this. Or this is working. This has worked my whole life. This isn't. Whatever you decide to do. He continues to say, I could say to a woman, when you think about what it's like to meet someone you really want to be with and you begin to wonder, really wonder, what is it about you that would make this person come back for more, Debbie? I'm just wondering whether or not you can see that very clearly in your mind or whether it's something that kind of bubbles beneath the surface and arises as you take actions on those desires. Now, I admit something here. That sounds cheesy. It does. Now I'm going to explain to you why that's not cheesy. I'm going to explain to you why if you can get those words out of your mouth, it's very powerful. First of all, he's got someone thinking about their fantasies. He has them closing their eyes and thinking of a fantasy, whether it's someone on TV, someone at work, something. Everyone has those. You have them at home. We all have them. And it's in your mind. It makes your heart race. It makes everything happy. And you're excited. Okay? Next, he delivers the part about calling her Debbie. So he's used her first name. Now, I don't know about you, but Debbie's a dumb fucking name. All right, I'm sorry. If you guys agree with me, great. If you don't, I don't care. Debbie's a dumb fucking name, okay? So she's probably not being called Debbie too many times because that just sounds dumb. So short for Deb, maybe. He's used a name that was given to her at a very young age, and she's basically, you know, returning back to that feeling of when she was young, which is usually happiness for a lot of us. So he's hammered home the part about Debbie. Second, I'm wondering what you see in your mind. He is getting information from her about what her fantasy is upstairs. So that's huge, okay? That's big. All right, and we continue a little bit further. In that little bit of laughing, which I just made up on the spot for you, there are a lot of different commands. Commands can tell a person to think of a certain thing or engage in a certain trait of thought, and that includes visualizing. You can tell them to think, picture, or imagine something. All these things engage the person into a certain train of thought. That's true, it does. Commands can also tell a listener to take some action. Go home, act on this, do this, I could say. When you think about what it's like to really be with someone you want to be with, and you reach that moment when you know it's time to take action on this, do you do that with a feeling of great enthusiasm, or do you find yourself doing it with wild abandon? So that goes back to what I was saying, that your heart races, a smile comes about you that you didn't even know you were doing. All these micro expressions happen, and it feels good. Nothing can harm you at this point. That's how I've always looked at it. You feel like you're on top of the world. Nothing can hurt you. Man, that's a great place to be. And I'm sure each and every one of you have felt that at some point. It's great. So the commands to do something could be vague. I honestly, personally, think they should be vague, because you can recover if it goes bad, if it's vague. When I say do this or go for it, I'm not exactly saying what that means. They could be very specific. I could say, go home with me, or give me that glass, or go down on me. All right, those are very specific. If those are not used correctly, you're going to A, be alone, and B, you're going to be looked at as the strangest fucker in the bar or club or restaurant or coffee shop or wherever you're at. Finally, commands can be used to guide the listener to feel something. I say, when you imagine what it's like to feel totally connected and you get really aroused as your feeling grows, and that's a little bit of phraseology. All right, he has used growing, so we know what grows, okay? You use words like going down, all right? That's an innuendo, but if you tie it into a sentence, subconsciously you hear growing and going down. Put two and two together, you know, it's an innuendo that pops into someone's head they didn't even know was happening, all right? Finally, commands can be used to guide the listener to feel something, all right? That part is basically what this is all about, because you're guiding someone to hear you, to listen to you, to do all these things that you want them to do, okay? These are the three basic things that commands do, according to Ross Jeffries. We'll talk about these. When you give a feeling command, you use the word feel, okay? But can also say get, okay? If I say when you really feel that connection with someone, I could also say when you get that feeling of connection. I could say feel the connection or get that feeling of connection. I could say feel aroused or get aroused. You could also say want. When you want to have something really hot is the same as saying when you feel the desire for something really hot. So basically it's wordplay in a lot of ways to see what's going on. And it's up to you. It needs to come natural. You've got to deliver it naturally, or again, you're going to be the creepy ass dude in the corner. But basically, to keep it simple, feeling commands start with the word feel or get. This is just reiterating the point I just made. People commands don't have to use the word feel. They can use get or want. I want you to keep it simple, okay? Just use get or feel, all right? Again, I'm going to stop him right there. Use what's natural. Use the words that you use. We all come from different backgrounds, cultures, places around the world. Words I use here in the South, you're not going to use somewhere else, more than likely. So it needs to, read your room, know your audience. What are some examples of commands to take action in the world? I prefer to give commands that don't quite tell you the specific action. If I say, go for this, do this now, take this opportunity, I'm not saying what the opportunity is because I'm being vague about it. It creates a suggestible state. I could say it's time to go home with me, but it works better for me to say it's time to take this opportunity. Now, what he did there, girls have heard everything when it comes to guys, okay? So you're not special. You're not unique. You haven't told her something she doesn't already know, all right? You're not. So you have to be special, unique, and tell her some shit she's never heard before, okay? Be special, be unique, and tell her some shit she's never heard before, all right? That's what you need to do. By switching this around, you want her to go home with you, but 99% of the women may say no if you direct it that way, whereas 20% will say yes if you change it around and make it seem like it's an opportunity. Seize the opportunity. Take the opportunity. Come home with this opportunity that just happens to have me attached to it, if that makes sense. Now, you're not going to say it that way unless you have a playful smile on your face. Certain people you can get around doing that with. But the interesting question to ask here is, how do you know she's going to interpret that as going home with you? Well, use these commands to take action at the end of the chain of suggestions when she's feeling turned on and connected. So you warm her up basically with certain words, the arousal going down, using certain words. If she starts touching you, obviously that's an indication of interest, looking you in the eye, not darting all over the room, checking out everything that's going on. If she's really focused and her heart and breathing has picked up, then you'll know. And that's a good time to do it. It's an isolation move to close. Then you say it's really interesting that when you do feel, and that you feel it building, a person can reach the conclusion that it's time to take this opportunity to go for it because you realize it's your own. Again, that goes back to what he said earlier. Make them feel like it's their own idea. They take your opportunity to come home with you is their idea, not yours, okay? When we're vague, we create a blank in the imagination. The imagination will fill in that blank. If you structure it by having a lot of commands and themes and such beforehand, that suggests sexual activity. Her unconscious mind will interpret that command as, go for taking this guy home now. You can also give specific commands. Do that. Fuck me. Blow me. Grab this. Grab this is actually vague. Okay? Grab what? What am I grabbing? Your coat? Your ass? What are we grabbing here? When we give action commands, we can be vague. Take this opportunity. Go for this. Do this. We can also be more specific. Bring me that. Come here. Give me your hand. Turn around. Now, stopping on that point for a second, I'm going to guess that most of you listening have never, ever talked to anyone that way other than a friend, a kid on the playground when you were in kindergarten, or, someone you weren't too afraid of, someone you weren't trying to gain affection and attention for. But let me tell you what this does. By talking this way to people, you're going to learn something very important. One, can you get away with saying this? Can you tell these people, grab this, do that, touch this, however you want to put it? If they follow through with it, what have you gained? Compliance. They are willing to do the commands that you said. Okay? What does that give you? That gives you a step up, a chip on your shoulder. Pretty much, they're into you to the point that anything that comes out of your mouth is going to go. Now, is that always accurate? No, it's not. Is it accurate more times than not? Absolutely. But with great power comes great responsibility, and you have to use that smartly. Don't turn into a sadistic fuck, all right? Use that smartly to gain what you want, okay? That's option one. Option two, she does not like that. She don't like the way you're talking to her. In fact, she finds it offensive. Two things happen here. Either your night's over, and guess what? That's okay. Move to the next person. Or she doesn't like it, your night's not over, but you know now you've went too far. The suggestions that you've brought up is too much, all right? It's too much. So, you know, the whole objective, as I quote the shirt that I wore for you guys today, for a lot of you guys, to quote the famous gas station in Iowa, is to come and go, all right? And the only way that you're going to be able to do that is to figure out which route you have to go with certain people. Certain people are going to respond to these commands. Other people are going to be repulsed by it. You decide if you're going to save it or not. And if you save it, guess what? You just don't give them any more commands. You go a different route, which is covered later in the book. And if Ross doesn't cover it, I'll cover it with you, okay? I'm going to stop this video here. I want to thank you guys for allowing me the space to come back and say hello and go back over this. Please like, subscribe, and ask me questions. I've really enjoyed talking with you guys over the last year. Keep those coming. If you want me to try some things, let me know. And again, it's very good talking with you guys. We'll see you on the next video. Later.